Jordan sat in the dim light of their small apartment, a cup of cold coffee on the table in front of them. The silence of the room was suffocating, thick with the weight of thoughts they couldn't escape. The soft glow of the laptop screen was the only thing illuminating the space, casting a pale hue over their worn-out clothes and the clutter that had accumulated over the past few months. The breakup with Emily, though months ago, still haunted them like a shadow, creeping into every corner of their life. The empty apartment felt like a symbol of everything that was wrong, everything that had fallen apart. They couldn't seem to shake the gnawing anxiety that had taken root in their chests. Each day, it grew harder to find meaning in the mundane routines they'd once found comfort in. Their job, which had once brought a sense of purpose, felt like a cage now. Each email and meeting just another reminder that they were stuck. The years they had spent chasing dreams that seemed so important back in their 20s now felt hollow and out of reach. It was as if time had passed them by, leaving them in a state of perpetual limbo, uncertain about what the future held. With a sigh, Jordan reached for their phone, scrolling absent-mindedly through social media. The blue light of the screen was another distraction, a way to fill the silence and keep their mind from spiraling into darker thoughts. They liked a few posts, friends' vacations, family gatherings, but it all felt distant, as if they were watching a life that wasn't their own. It was easy to feel disconnected from others when their own life seemed like a fractured puzzle, pieces missing, never fitting together quite right. Suddenly, something caught their eye, a message from Alex. Alex? It was the first time they'd heard from them in years. Their hearts skipped a beat. Alex, their best friend from childhood. They hadn't seen or spoken to each other in over 5 years. After high school, life had pulled them in different directions. Alex had moved out of town for college, and Jordan stayed behind, trying to navigate adulthood in the same old small town. The distance between them grew, slowly at first, then all at once, until a friendship that had once been a cornerstone of their life faded into nothing more than a distant memory. The message was simple, just a few words. Hey, Jordan, it's been a while. I was thinking about you the other day. We should catch up sometime. Jordan stared at the screen for a long moment, the weight of the message settling in. Catch up? They hadn't even thought about Alex in months, maybe even years. Time had a way of erasing people. And even though Alex had once meant everything to them, the years of silence had turned that bond into something unfamiliar. But now, the idea of reconnecting stirred something in Jordan. A spark, a faint flicker of something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, maybe, or just a desire to feel less alone. They typed a response, a mix of hesitation and excitement. Hey, it really has been a while. I'd love to catch up. When are you free? As they hit send, a strange sense of anticipation hung in the air, mixing with a familiar unease that had been their constant companion. Something about this message, this reconnection, felt like the start of something. But what? Jordan couldn't say. The only thing they knew for sure was that, in this quiet loneliness, the past had found its way back into their life. Jordan sat at their kitchen table, staring at the blinking cursor on their phone screen. After sending their message to Alex the night before, they had spent the entire evening overthinking every word, every punctuation mark. What had they been expecting? A polite reply? A casual conversation? They had barely thought about Alex in years. So why did this simple message feel so monumental now? The reply came much sooner than Jordan had anticipated. Great. How about this Saturday? We can meet at that old cafe we used to go to, the Green Door. I'll be there around 2 p.m. I hope you can make it. It seemed like an innocent invitation, one that anyone might make to reconnect with an old friend. But for Jordan, the weight of it was far from simple. The Green Door, they thought, their mind drifting back in time to the countless afternoons they and Alex had spent there in high school. The cafe had been their sanctuary, a place of shared secrets, inside jokes, and endless conversations that felt like they could last forever. In that worn-out corner booth, they had talked about everything. Dreams of the future, fears of what might come, even trivial things like which movie to watch that night. But now, years later, that same booth felt like a relic from another life, one that Jordan wasn't sure they were ready to revisit. A wave of nostalgia swept over them, mingling with the hesitation that had been bubbling inside since receiving Alex's message. What would they talk about? So much had changed. Jordan had changed. Had Alex changed too? Would it feel strange, awkward? The idea of reconnecting was both comforting and intimidating, a strange mix of emotions they couldn't quite untangle. Still, the loneliness they had been battling in recent months gnawed at them, reminding them of how much they missed feeling close to someone, how much they missed having a person who understood them. With a sigh, Jordan tapped out a quick response. "Saturday sounds good. I'll see you then." As soon as the message was sent, they felt a wave of uncertainty wash over them. It was like a door had been opened, one they weren't sure they wanted to walk through. They had no idea what to expect from this meeting, or from Alex. 1,000 thoughts rushed through their mind, but the most persistent one was a simple, nagging question. What had happened to their friendship? They remembered the last time they'd seen each other, how life had pulled them in different directions after high school, how the messages and calls had gradually stopped coming. They couldn't even pinpoint exactly when it had all started to fade. Maybe it had been gradual, or maybe it had been the day Alex left for college and never looked back. Jordan's fingers hovered over the screen again, contemplating whether to ask why Alex had reached out after all this time. But no, that felt too soon. Too much of an interrogation. They decided it was better to simply let the conversation unfold in person. After all, they had a lot of lost time to make up for. The evening before their meeting, Jordan could barely sleep. A mixture of excitement and dread kept him awake, imagining what this reunion might hold. Would Alex remember everything the same way? Would it feel like nothing had changed? Or would it be more like meeting a stranger? Someone wearing Alex's face, but with none of the warmth or familiarity they once shared. The next day, Saturday, came quickly, and Jordan found themselves standing in front of the green door, looking at the old sign that still hung above the door. Everything felt familiar, but also different. Had the cafe always been this small? Why did the chairs look so uncomfortable now? They pushed open the door and stepped inside. The warmth of the cafe hit them, mingled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. And there, sitting at the familiar booth by the window, was Alex. Time had changed them both in ways they couldn't yet understand. But the journey back to their friendship was about to begin. The bell above the door jingled softly as Jordan stepped into the cafe, the familiar sound greeting them like an old friend. The green door had changed little since their last visit. Its mismatched furniture, the chalkboard menu, the soft murmur conversation. But something felt different, as if time itself had paused for a moment before resuming its course. The air was warm with the scent of coffee and baked goods, but it was the memories that filled the space, swirling in the corners of Jordan's mind. Their eyes immediately found Alex, sitting in the same booth they had always shared. It was almost surreal to see them there, looking so much the same, yet somehow not the person Jordan remembered. Alex had changed, of course. Everyone did after years apart, but it was more than that. There was an unfamiliarity in their expression, a distance in their eyes that wasn't there before. Alex looked up as Jordan approached, and their face broke into a smile. "Jordan, you made it," they said, their voice warm and genuine. Jordan's heart gave a little flutter. There was something comforting about the way Alex spoke. Like no time had passed at all. They slid into the booth across from Alex, and for a moment, everything seemed to fall into place. The conversation flowed easily at first. Small talk, catching up on life, the usual awkwardness of two people reconnecting after years of silence. "How's work?" Alex asked, sipping their coffee, their fingers wrapped around the cup just like they used to. "It's all right," Jordan replied. Try and keep their tone light. Same old stuff, nothing exciting. They paused, studying Alex for a moment, trying to gauge their expression. There was something about them that felt different, though Jordan couldn't put their finger on it. They were still wearing that same old hoodie, the one that had been a signature part of their look back in the day, but the edges of their smiles seemed a little too wide, as if they were trying too hard to mask something. Alex tilted their heads slightly, narrowing their eyes in a playful way. "Come on, it can't be that boring. You were always so ambitious. Remember when we talked about moving to the city after college? What happened to that plan?" Jordan felt a small jolt at the mention of the old dream, moving to the city. They had talked about it endlessly during their late-night talks, about how they'd escape the confines of their small town and make something of themselves in the city, a place where the world was full of possibility. But Jordan hadn't thought about that plan in years. It felt like a lifetime ago, like a different version of themselves. They smiled awkwardly, trying to push past the uncomfortable twinge. "Yeah, well, life happened. I think we both got a little caught up in different things, huh?" Jordan said, their voice trailing off as they glanced down at their coffee. Alex didn't respond right away. There was a slight pause, a moment where the silence stretched just a little too long. When they spoke again, their tone was lighter, but there was a hint of something Jordan couldn't quite place. "I guess so. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? How things turn out." Jordan nodded, trying to shake off the lingering unease. They had once shared such a deep connection with Alex. But now, there was something about them, something off. It wasn't anything obvious, just small things. The way Alex's eyes flickered the window for a moment too long, as if they were distracted. The subtle hesitation when they spoke, as though they were carefully choosing their words, measuring them. Jordan's mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. It was easy to chalk it up to the years that had passed, the natural changes people go through. But still, there was an unsettled feeling gnawing at them, a growing sense that something was wrong. "So what's new with you?" Alex asked, leaning forward a little, their expression open, waiting for an answer. Jordan opened their mouth to respond, but something in their gut told them that this conversation was just the beginning, that whatever was going on between them wasn't going to be so easily explained away. Something had changed in Alex, something deep and unsettling, and Jordan wasn't sure they were ready to face it. But as they looked into Alex's eyes, tried to read them, they felt the first hint of fear creep up their spine. This was just the beginning. The conversation meandered in familiar directions as Jordan and Alex fell into the rhythm of old friends catching up. The weight of the years between them felt lighter now, like a barrier that was slowly being chipped away, piece by piece. They laughed about old times, reminiscing about the high school pranks, the late-night study sessions, and the way they used to spend entire weekends watching movies or talking about everything and nothing at all. For a moment, it almost felt like no time had passed. Jordan was beginning to feel more at ease. The tension that had settled in their chest since entering the cafe slowly dissolving. The familiarity of Alex's presence, the sound of their laughter, it all brought a sense of comfort, that Jordan hadn't realized they'd missed. But then, something small happened. Something that at first seemed insignificant but soon sent a ripple of unease through Jordan's mind. Hey, do you remember that time we went camping at Clear Lake? Jordan asked casually, smiling at the memory. You, me, and Ben, we almost got lost hiking and then ended up sitting by the fire telling ghost stories. I still laugh about that. You were terrified of the dark. Alex paused mid-sip, their eyes narrowing slightly as they looked at Jordan. The smile on their face faltered just for a moment before they set their cup down. Camping? Clear Lake? Jordan's heart skipped a beat. Yeah, when we were 16, we all went, remember? Ben was being dramatic about the bears. And you kept freaking out every time you heard a twig snap. Alex stared at them, their brow furrowed in confusion. I don't think I remember that, actually. The words hung in the air, a cold silence settling between them. Jordan's mind raced as they tried to process what they had just heard. What do you mean you don't remember? The memory was so vivid, so clear in their mind. Alex had been terrified, holding onto Jordan's arm like a lifeline as they sat around the fire, laughing and talking about their futures. Jordan's throat felt tight. Wait, you don't remember? They asked, the words slipping out before they could stop them. You were the one who brought the marshmallows. We even joked about you bringing enough for the whole camp. Alex blinked a few times, their lips pressing to a thin line. I'm sorry, but I honestly don't remember that. Maybe you're thinking of someone else. Jordan's chest tightened, a knot forming in their stomach. Someone else? It felt wrong, the way Alex said it, as if they were trying to convince themselves as much as Jordan. Alex's face was unreadable now, their gaze distant, and Jordan could swear they saw a flicker of discomfort in their eyes. Yeah, you're probably right, Jordan said quickly, forcing a chuckle that felt too loud in the suddenly tense air. It's been so long, I guess I'm mixing things up. They tried to shake it off, dismissing it as a simple lapse in memory. After all, people change. Time passed. It was entirely possible that Alex had forgotten one insignificant camping trip from years ago. It wasn't a big deal. But even as Jordan said those words, a small unease began to gnaw at them. Why did Alex look so uncomfortable? Why was there that subtle hesitation in their voice? The way Alex had tried to brush it off felt too rehearsed, too forced. The conversation continued after that, but the warmth from earlier was gone. It was as though the moment had cracked something beneath the surface, something Jordan couldn't name, but could feel tugging at the edges of their mind. Every time Alex spoke after that, Jordan couldn't shake the feeling that they were talking to someone who wasn't entirely the same person who had once been their best friend. It was like Alex was still there, but something was missing. The laughter felt a little emptier, the stories a little less vibrant. Jordan's thoughts kept drifting back to that camping trip, the way they had shared something so simple, so real, and yet Alex couldn't remember it. They smiled stiffly, trying to push the unease aside, but it lingered like a shadow, darkening the edges of the conversation. A week had passed since the last meeting, but the unease that lingered after their conversation still gnawed at Jordan's thoughts. They had told themselves it was nothing, a mere lapse in memory, nothing to make a fuss about. But the more they replayed that moment, the more it felt like something deeper was at play. So when Alex reached out again, suggesting they meet for lunch at a different cafe across town, Jordan agreed, though with a nagging hesitation. The last time had been so unsettling, but there was still a part of them that clung to the hope of rekindling the friendship they once had. Maybe it had just been an off moment. People changed, after all. Maybe Alex was going through something, and that was why they seemed different. This time, as Jordan entered the cafe, they immediately spotted Alex, sitting near the back, their figures slouched in the corner booth. The place was quieter than usual, and Alex appeared to be staring out the window, their gaze distant. As Jordan approached, Alex didn't immediately look up, and for a brief moment, Jordan wondered if they had been forgotten. "Hey!" Jordan greeted, sliding into booth across from Alex. Alex blinked a few times, their attention snapping back to the present. Their lips twitched in a smile that seemed half-hearted, like it was a reflex rather than a genuine expression. "Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Sorry." Jordan sat back, noting the absence of the warm, familiar energy that Alex used to radiate. The ease with which they had once conversed was nowhere to be found. Alex's posture was stiff, and they kept glancing around the cafe, not quite meeting Jordan's eyes. "How have you been?" Jordan asked, trying to break the ice, though the weight of the silence between them made the question feel awkward. "Yeah, good. Just busy with work, you know?" Alex replied, offering a nonchalant shrug. Their voice was flat, lacking the enthusiasm Jordan had expected. It was as if they were merely going through the motions of conversation, not truly engaging. Jordan nodded, unsure how to proceed. The air between them felt strained, and they were beginning to feel the weight of the growing distance between them. They attempted to steer the conversation towards something more personal, something that might reignite the spark of their old connection. "Remember that time we all stayed up late, talking about what we'd do if we won the lottery? You, me, and Ben, just throwing out ridiculous ideas for what we'd spend the money on?" Jordan asked, hoping to bring up something lighthearted, something to make Alex laugh like they used to. Alex blinked, their expression unreadable for a moment. Then they furrowed their brow. I don't remember that. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I don't really recall it." The words hit Jordan like a slap in the face. The memory was so vivid, so clear in their minds. It had been one of those nights where the three of them sat on the floor, surrounded by empty pizza boxes, brainstorming the most outlandish dreams for their futures. They had laughed for hours, comfortable in their shared history. But now, Alex couldn't even recall it. Jordan forced a smile, tried to brush it off. "Yeah, I guess it was a long time ago." They swallowed hard, feeling the sharp pang of rejection cutting through their chests. Was it just me? Jordan wondered. Am I the only one who remembers? The silence stretched between them, heavier now. Jordan watched as Alex shifted in their seat, their gaze flicking back toward the window again, clearly distracted. "Are you okay, Alex?" Jordan asked softly, their voice hesitant. The question hung in the air, uncertain. They wanted to believe that Alex was just stressed or dealing with something they hadn't shared. But deep down, they feared something was wrong, something far more troubling than simple distance. Alex blinked again, and for a moment, their eyes seemed unfocused. "Yeah, I'm fine," Alex said quickly, but the unease in their voice told Jordan otherwise. They seemed like they were shutting down, retreating into themselves in a way that Jordan hadn't seen before. It felt like an emotional wall had gone up between them. Jordan sat back in their seat, their stomach twisting in frustration and confusion. Something was wrong. They couldn't deny it anymore. But the question remained, was it Alex or was it them? Were they simply imagining all this? Was it possible that their mind was playing tricks on them, misinterpreting every subtle shift in Alex's behavior? Or was something more sinister at play? "Are you sure everything's okay?" Jordan pressed, their voice barely above a whisper now. Their eyes locked with Alex's, searching for any sign of the person they used to know. But all they saw was a stranger sitting across from them. Alex looked away again, this time for longer, and Jordan's heart sank. The unease that had been brewing since their first meeting now felt like a storm gathering strength. "I'm fine, really. Just tired," Alex said, offering the same weak smile from earlier. But this time, Jordan didn't believe it. They felt the air between them growing colder, the connection slipping further away with each passing second. After another awkward meeting with Alex, Jordan felt a deep, gnawing need to understand what was happening. The unease that had been building since that first strange encounter was now an unshakable presence, a dark cloud hovering over their every thought. Alex's behavior, their subtle distance, the strange gaps in memory, all felt too much to dismiss as coincidence or a simple lapse in time. Something was wrong. But what? The instinct to find answers was overpowering. Jordan's mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. The more they thought about it, the more the feeling of confusion and doubt took root. Maybe it wasn't just Alex who had changed. What if Jordan had been misremembering things all along? What if the problem wasn't with Alex, but with their own mind? To try to make sense of it, Jordan decided to revisit the places that held the most significant memories from their past, those moments with Alex that had shaped their friendship. They had to be sure. If they could find these places again, see them with their own eyes, maybe it would help. Maybe it would bring them some clarity. The first place Jordan chose was the old park where they'd spent hours together, talking about their futures, running around like kids, and pretending the world had no weight. It was a park full of laughter, of simple, carefree moments that had defined their bond. Jordan had passed it countless times over years, but today, the familiar path felt wrong. As they walked along the cracked concrete path, the park didn't feel the way they remembered it. The trees that once provided shade now seemed sparse, their branches too thin, their leaves dull and lifeless. The bench where they had sat and talked for hours was still there, but it looked faded, worn, and far less inviting than it had in their memory. The playground equipment, once a gathering place for joy and chaos, now seemed rusted, forgotten. Jordan's heart pounded in her chest, a wave of discomfort sweeping over them. This isn't right, they thought. The park should have felt nostalgic, a warm, familiar place, but instead it felt foreign. They wandered around, trying to piece the memories together, but the details weren't matching up. The swings had always been further down the path, hadn't they? And the pond where they'd sat with their feet in the water, feeding the ducks? It wasn't this small, was it? There was something off about the layout, but Jordan couldn't quite place what had changed. Or had I just forgotten how it really looked? Try to shake the unease. Jordan left the park and drove to the small cafe where they had shared countless coffees and late-night conversations. It had always been their place. Quiet, intimate, where they could talk about anything. The bell on the door chimed as they stepped inside, and for a brief moment, Jordan felt a flicker of recognition. But as their eyes scanned the room, the sense of familiarity quickly faded. The walls, once lined with cozy paintings and soft lighting, were now bare, the overhead lights harsh and unwelcoming. The tables were arranged differently, and the scent of coffee that had once felt comforting now felt bitter and industrial. Jordan's fingers brushed against the table where they had sat so many times with Alex, but it felt cold to the touch. The wood not nearly as smooth as they remembered. Even the barista behind the counter looked different, as though they had never worked there before. Jordan's throat tightened. This can't be right, they thought, their hands trembling slightly. This was supposed to be a safe place. My place with Alex. But now it feels like I'm walking into a dream. In a final attempt to find something familiar, Jordan headed to the lake, where they had spent entire afternoons lying on the grass, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The lake had always been a sanctuary for them, a place where they could escape the world and just exist in the presence of each other. But as they reached the shoreline, their breath caught in their chests. The lake was smaller than they remembered, the water murkier, as though the reflection of the sky had been swallowed up by something dark beneath the surface. The rocks along the edge were scattered haphazardly, the once pristine grass now overgrown and tangled. The feeling of peace that used to come so naturally here had been replaced with an eerie stillness. Jordan stood on the shore for a long time, staring out over the water, feeling the heavy weight of confusion pressing down on them. Why does everything feel wrong? They wondered. Am I losing my mind? The more Jordan searched for answers in places they used to hold dear, the more everything seemed to slip further away. The memories felt fragile, like old photographs that had started to fade with time. The world they had once known was slowly crumbling, and the more they tried to hold on to it, the more it seemed to slip through their fingers. Was it possible that they were simply misremembering? That these places hadn't changed at all, but their mind had? Or was there something more sinister at play? Something that was warping their reality? Slowly and methodically? Jordan didn't know. But the unease continued to grow, and the question that gnawed at them was no longer just about Alex. What if the problem is me? It had been a few days since Jordan's unsettling journey through the places they had once shared with Alex. The memories, once vivid and concrete, now seemed like distant, faded echoes. The discomfort that had begun to grow between them seemed to have taken root. And despite Jordan's attempts to dismiss it, the tension was now palpable, hanging heavy in the air whenever they were together. Jordan's phone buzzed late one evening. A message from Alex, suggesting they meet for drinks. The invitation felt somewhat detached, as if Alex were reaching out from a great distance, but Jordan couldn't resist. They hadn't seen each other in a few days, and Jordan hoped that maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time things would feel normal again. The meeting took place at a small bar they used to frequent. It had always been a cozy spot, a place where they could sit for hours without worrying about time slipping away. The dim lighting and quiet hum of the crowd in the background made it feel familiar in the best way possible. But as Jordan entered and spotted Alex at their usual spot by the window, a strange tension lingered in the pit of their stomach. Alex was already nursing a drink, their posture stiff, eyes scanning the room in a way that was almost uncomfortable. When Jordan slid into the seat across from them, they barely acknowledged it, offering only a curt nod instead of the usual enthusiastic greeting. "Hey," Jordan said softly, trying to gauge the mood. "How have you been?" Alex shrugged, their gaze flicking away for a moment before turning to meet Jordan's eyes. Though their expression was flat, lacking the warmth that used to be there. "I've been fine. Just busy." Jordan nodded, unsure how to respond. The conversation, as usual, didn't flow easily. The familiar back-and-forth banter, once effortless, now felt strained. They sat in silence for a few moments before Jordan, trying to break the tension, mentioned something lighthearted. "I ran into Ben the other day," Jordan said, a hint of a smile playing on their lips. "He still can't get over that one time you almost spilled coffee all over your laptop." Alex's eyes flickered with a barest hint of recognition, but it quickly faded. "Yeah, I remember," they said, though their tone was distant, almost indifferent. That was a long time ago. Jordan frowned, their smile fading as they studied Alex. It was just a joke, they thought. Just try and make things feel normal. But Alex's response felt more like an afterthought, a concession rather than a genuine recollection of the memory. The unease began to bubble up again. Jordan pressed on, eager to reestablish some kind of connection. "I don't know why I'm still surprised you haven't changed, Alex. You're always so unpredictable. I kind of miss that." Alex's eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment, Jordan thought they saw a flicker of annoyance behind their gaze. But Alex quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Unpredictable, huh?" they muttered. "I don't know, Jordan. I think you might be the one who's changed." The words hit Jordan like a punch to the gut. The harshness of Alex's tone sent a wave of discomfort surging through them. It wasn't just a comment itself, but the way Alex had said it, so coldly, without the slightest trace of affection. Jordan stared wide-eyed at Alex, waiting for some kind of clarification. a hint of the playful sarcasm that had always been their trademark. But Alex didn't soften. They just looked away, staring out the window, as if the conversation had already ended. "I'm sorry, what?" Jordan asked, their voice a mixed confusion and disbelief. "What do you mean by that?" Alex sighed heavily, their fingers drumming on the rim of their glass. "I mean, you've been acting weird, Jordan. You've been different. You don't seem like you anymore. You're always overthinking everything, making things more complicated than they need to be." Jordan's pulse quickened, the sting of the words sinking deeper with each passing second. The defensiveness in Alex's voice, the accusation. It didn't feel like the Alex they once knew. This wasn't a playful jab or a friendly critique. This felt cold, distant, and almost cruel. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jordan said, their voice trembling slightly as the hurt started to seep through. "I'm just trying to talk to you. You're the one who's been acting strange lately." Alex looked back at Jordan, their expression unreadable, but there was a flicker of something sharp in their gaze. "I don't know, Jordan. Maybe you've been holding on to things that aren't there anymore. You've been clinging to a version of me that doesn't exist. You're making it hard to even talk to you, and maybe that's why things have been off lately." The words stung, and Jordan's heart pounded in their chest, the sudden weight of the conversation overwhelming them. They hadn't expected this. They hadn't expected Alex to be so distant, so accusing. The shift in their demeanor, this sudden hardness, felt like a betrayal. A moment of silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. Jordan's mind raced. Try to process what had just happened. What did Alex mean by that? It felt as though something had fractured, something irreversible. "I don't get it," Jordan muttered, looking down at their hands in an attempt to steady themselves. "Why are you being like this?" Alex didn't respond immediately. Instead, they stared at the glass in front of them, their fingers tapping rhythmically against the rim. Finally, they sighed. "I'm not being anything. I'm just telling you how I see it." The tension in the air was suffocating, and Jordan could feel the walls closing in. They weren't sure what had happened, but the reality of the situation was sinking in. This wasn't just a miscommunication anymore. It wasn't just a lapse in memory. Something deeper had shifted between them, and the friendship they had once shared seemed to be crumbling right in front of them. Jordan's heart raced as they realized the conversation wasn't over. It had only just begun, and they had no idea how it was going to end. The night after the disagreement with Alex was long and sleepless for Jordan. Every word from the conversation replayed in their head, like a broken record that wouldn't stop spinning. The weight of the disagreement, the harshness in Alex's tone, the sudden coldness, stuck to Jordan like a second skin. They kept questioning themselves. Had they really changed? Had they been imagining things all along? The more Jordan thought about it, the more the nagging doubt grew, sinking deeper and deeper into their thoughts. Maybe Alex was right. Maybe they had been overthinking things, looking for signs of something that wasn't there. But that didn't explain the coldness, the distance. Why was Alex acting like this? Unable to rest, Jordan sat up in bed and reached for the old shoebox that had been tucked away under their desk for years. It was filled with photos and mementos from their time with Alex. The countless memories they had shared, the laughter and the promises. They had always meant to go through it someday, to look back and relive those moments of warmth and comfort. But now it felt different. Jordan wasn't sure if they wanted to remember anymore. Still, they felt an insistent pull to search for something to prove that the friendship was real, something to remind them that things had been better once. The first photo they pulled out was from a camping trip they had taken in college. They were sitting around a campfire, laughing, with the night sky above them. Alex had a wide grin on their face, their eyes sparkling with that familiar mischievous glint. Jordan smiled as they looked at it, but then something caught their eye, It was Alex's expression, the way they were smiling. It didn't seem quite right. Had Alex really smiled like that? The more Jordan stared, the more the image began to distort in their mind. The smile didn't look genuine. It was forced, almost hollow, shaking their head. Jordan moved to the next photo. A candid shot of them and Alex at a concert, their arms around each other, their faces lit up with excitement. But again, there was that same unsettling feeling. Alex's face, the way their eyes seemed a little too wide, a little too distant. The person in the picture looked like Alex, but something about it didn't sit right. It was as if the person smiling in the photo wasn't the Alex Jordan remembered. With growing unease, Jordan flipped through more pictures, each one seemingly more unsettling than the last. Photos from their high school graduation, their first road trip, even the pictures from that day in the park, when they had made a pact to always be there for each other. And yet, in every single one, Alex's smile seemed wrong, the expression too stiff or too empty, as though it were someone else entirely. The familiarity was fading, like a dream you could no longer recall when you woke up. Jordan's hand started to tremble as they placed the photos down on the bed, staring at them in disbelief. Was this really Alex? They thought, was this even real? They grabbed another photo, this time from a birthday party years ago, when they had celebrated with just a few close friends. In the image, Alex was holding a cake, their face covered in frosting, laughing. But again, Jordan saw it. The eyes weren't quite right. The person in the photo wasn't acting like Alex, wasn't smiling the way Alex used to. The gaze was different, distant. This isn't the same person, Jordan thought. Panic rising in their chest. They pushed the photos away in frustration, their minds spinning with confusion and fear. The memories they once cherished now felt warped, like they were slipping through their fingers, out of reach. What was going on? Had they really forgotten the details of their own past? Or was something darker happening? Maybe I've been imagining it all. Maybe Alex has always been like this, and I never noticed before. But that didn't feel right either. There had to be an explanation, something that made sense of all this. Desperately trying to ground themselves, Jordan grabbed her phone and texted Alex. Can we talk? Something's not right. I need to understand what's going on between us. But as they typed the message, they couldn't help but wonder, what if I don't even recognize Alex anymore? The silence from Alex's end stretched on longer than it ever had before. No response. Had they seen the message? Jordan stared at the screen, the unanswered text taunting them, making the weight of the night feel even heavier. They stood up, pacing back and forth in the quiet of their apartment. Everything around them felt off. The air was thick with a sense of disorientation, and their mind felt like it was about to collapse under the pressure of these growing doubts. What if I'm the one who's changing? Jordan thought, their hands shaking. What if it's me who's becoming unrecognizable? The room seemed to close in around them, and for the first time, Jordan felt the full weight of the fear that had been quietly creeping in for weeks. Their memories, their connection to Alex, it was all starting to fray at the edges. Nothing felt secure anymore. They couldn't even trust the photos that once captured moments of happiness. And that realization made everything feel even more unsettling. Maybe I've been forgetting all along, Jordan thought, sitting back down on the bed. Or maybe it's something else, something I can't understand yet. And as the night stretched on, filled with unanswered texts and memories that seemed to slip further out of reach, Jordan couldn't shake the growing feeling that something was deeply wrong. Not just with Alex, but with everything. The darkness in the room was suffocating. The quiet hum of the city outside barely penetrated the walls of Jordan's apartment, and the soft glow of the streetlights cast long shadows across the floor. It was a night like any other, but for Jordan, sleep had become a battlefield, a place where their mind raced with unanswered questions and creeping anxiety. As they lay in bed, their thoughts continued to churn, circling back to Alex. The photographs, the strange interactions, the growing distance between them. It was all too much to bear. It was as if every time they closed their eyes, they were drowning in an ocean of memories, each wave more distorted than the last. But tonight, things felt different. There was an edge to the silence, an intensity that filled the air like a storm waiting to break. It didn't take long for sleep to overtake Jordan, but it wasn't the restful escape they desperately craved. No, this sleep was a door to something far darker. The nightmare began innocuously. Jordan found themselves back in that old park, where they had spent countless afternoons with Alex. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the scene. They were sitting on the same bench they had so many times before, laughing, reminiscing about old memories. Alex sat beside them, their familiar voice filling the air with jokes and light-hearted teasing. But as Jordan turned to look at Alex, something felt wrong. The voice that had once been so comforting now had an unfamiliar quality to it, distant, hollow, as though it were coming from far away. When Jordan looked at Alex's face, it wasn't the same anymore. The features were shifting, almost imperceptibly at first, but enough to make Jordan's heart race. Alex's eyes no longer held the warmth and familiarity they once had. Instead, they were empty, dark void that seemed to suck the light from the room. Their smile, once genuine, now stretched unnaturally across their face, as if it were carved into the skin, mocking the memories they had once shared. Jordan, Alex's voice echoed, distorted like a broken recording. Why are you so afraid of me? Jordan froze, their breath caught in their throat. They tried to speak, to reach out to the Alex they knew, but their voice caught in their chest. Every time they tried to call out, the words twisted into something they didn't recognize. Alex. Jordan's voice trembled, but the figure beside them didn't respond. Instead, the face of Alex began to warp even more, shifting and distorting into something grotesque. The smile turned into a twisted, jagged grin, and the eyes became deep, dark pits that seemed to swallow everything around them. In an instant, the park began to dissolve, the trees and the grass fading into nothing. Jordan was left standing in a void, surrounded by a swirling black mist. The ground beneath them was soft, as if it were made of fog itself, and the air was thick with an oppressive sense of dread. Jordan, the voice of Alex, called out again, but this time it wasn't coming from the figure beside them. It echoed from all directions, like a chorus of whispers. Jordan's heart pounded in her chest as they turned, trying to find the source of the voice, but all they saw was the shifting shape of the distorted Alex. The figure's face flickered, morphing from one horrifying image to the next, each time more alien, more terrifying than the last. The eyes were no longer human, the mouth now gaping open in a silent scream, as if something was trying to escape. "No, this isn't you," Jordan shouted, but their voice was drowned out by the rising cacophony of distorted sounds. The air around them thickened, pressing in on their chest, suffocating them. The figure that had once been Alex reached out toward them, the hands elongated and twisted, claws scraping against the air. Jordan recoiled in terror. But no matter how far they backed away, the figure was always there, always moving closer. "Don't you remember?" The voice hissed, now a chilling whisper. "You're forgetting me, Jordan. You're forgetting everything we were." The ground beneath them cracked open, revealing a vast, dark abyss. It was as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart, and Jordan was being dragged into the void. "Please," Jordan screamed, their voice now desperate, as the dark figure loomed closer, its distorted features now blending into one monstrous shape. "Alex, help me. I don't want to lose you." But the figure did not respond. Instead, it began to laugh, a high-pitched, maniacal laugh that echoed in every corner of the void. It was no longer Alex. It was something else entirely. Something that wore Alex's face like a mask, a grotesque imitation of the friendship they had once shared. The laughter grew louder, filling Jordan's mind, until it became unbearable, until it drowned out everything else. And just when Jordan thought they couldn't take it anymore, the nightmare shattered in an instant. Jordan woke with a sharp gasp, sitting up in bed, drenched in sweat. The room was dark, the silence thick and oppressive. The only sound was the pounding of their heart, echoing in their ears. The nightmare had felt so real, so vivid, that for a moment, they couldn't tell where the dream had ended and reality had begun. They looked around the room, trying to shake off the lingering fear, but it clung to them like a second skin. The fear of losing Alex was no longer just a vague worry in the back of their mind. It was something visceral, something that threatened to swallow them whole. As they tried to steady their breathing, Jordan realized just how much the fear of forgetting had taken hold of them. Could they really be forgetting? They thought of the photos, the memories, the increasing sense that something was slipping away from them. But the nightmare, it had been a warning. It wasn't just about Alex anymore. It was about Jordan, too. The fear of losing themselves, of watching everything they held dear dissolve into something unrecognizable. The weight of it all pressed down on them. And for the first time, they understood the full horror of what was happening. The friendship was slipping away, and so was their grasp on reality. The unease that had begun to gnaw at Jordan's mind after the nightmare settled into an all-consuming dread. Days had passed since the dream, but the feeling that something was deeply wrong had only intensified. Every moment spent with Alex felt like a tug-of-war between nostalgia and an unsettling sense of alienation. Something was off, but Jordan couldn't place it. It was as if the friendship they'd cherished was slipping through their fingers like sand, no matter how tightly they tried to hold on. Jordan sat at their kitchen table, mind spinning, as they stared at their phone screen. They had considered reaching out to someone else who might know more, someone who might be able to offer some clarity. A mutual friend, Leah, had been close to both Jordan and Alex during their younger years. If anyone could shed light on Alex's recent behavior, it was Leah. With a deep breath, Jordan typed a quick message. "Hey, Leah, how's everything been? I've been meaning to ask about Alex. I've noticed they've been distant. Have you heard from them?" The message sat on the screen for a few moments before Jordan pressed send. The pause was unsettling. Had they been too forward? Too anxious? Jordan quickly shook off the doubt. The sense of something wrong was overwhelming, and it had started to affect their ability to think straight. Moments later, the phone buzzed with a response. "Hey, Jordan. Things have been good on my end, but yeah, Alex has been pretty distant lately. It's been odd. They've stopped responding to most messages. And when they do, they're super short, like they don't really want to talk. I think I've seen them a couple of times in passing, but they just don't seem the same. It's been like that for a while now. Maybe they're going through something." Jordan's stomach twisted as they read Leah's message. Something. That was the word that echoed in their mind. Was Alex going through something? Or was it something more? Was it possible that the changes Jordan had been sensing weren't just a result of time passing, but something darker? Something real? Jordan quickly typed a response. "I've been feeling that too. It's like, when I meet with them, they seem like a stranger, almost like they've forgotten everything we had. Do you think something might have happened to them?" They didn't have to wait long before Leah replied. "I don't know, but it's worrying. I really haven't talked to them much lately. Maybe it's a phase or something, but I'll be honest. It's been hard to keep up with them recently, and I'm not the only one who's noticed it. The last time I bumped into them, they were a lot more distant than usual, like they weren't even trying to make a connection." The message felt like a blow to Jordan. Their worst fear had a name now. Alex wasn't just acting differently around them. It wasn't all in Jordan's head. Leah, too, had noticed something off. But why? What was happening to Alex? Have you tried talking to them about it? Jordan asked, though they already knew the answer. I have, but they're always dodging the subject or changing it. I can't get a straight answer from them. It's like they've built a wall around themselves. Jordan's fingers trembled as they typed their next response. I'm really worried, Leah. Something's not right. Do you think it could be something serious? The response came quickly, but only deepened the uncertainty in Jordan's chest. Honestly, I don't know, but I think we need to give them some space. Whatever it is, it seems like they're dealing with it alone right now. The weight of Leah's words hung in the air, dealing with it alone. It was as if Alex had been retreating into some isolated corner of their mind. And now, the distance Jordan had noticed in Alex's behavior wasn't just a passing thing. It was real, and it was only getting worse. Jordan set the phone down, the reality of the situation crashing over them. They had hoped that perhaps the changes were something temporary, something that would fade with time. But as the days passed, the tension only grew. They had hoped that Leah's message would provide some clarity. But now, they felt more lost than ever. They needed answers. They needed to understand what was happening to Alex before it completely unraveled. But every step forward seemed to lead them deeper into uncertainty, a place where the line between what was real and what was imagined began to blur. Jordan sat in the quiet of their apartment, staring at the space around them. The walls felt closing in, as if the world had grown smaller and more suffocating. The unease settled into their bones like a cold, creeping fog. What was happening to Alex? And more importantly, was Jordan about to lose him forever? Jordan's stomach twisted as they walked into the small, dimly lit cafe where they'd arranged to meet Alex. The air was thick with a familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee, but today, everything felt off. The buzz of conversation around them felt distant, as if the world had slipped into a haze, leaving only Jordan and the echo of their own unease. They had tried to brush off the doubts, tried to convince themselves that it was just the passage of time or the distance that had built up between them. But the nagging sensation in the back of their mind had become undeniable. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Alex was already seated at a corner table, their figures silhouetted against the soft glow of the hanging lights. Jordan hesitated for a moment before walking over. Alex looked up as they approached, their face lighting up with a smile, but it didn't quite reach their eyes. The warmth that once radiated from Alex was gone, replaced by a strange attachment. "Hey," Jordan said, sliding into the seat across from Alex. They tried to smile, but it felt forced. "It's good to see you." "Yeah," Alex replied, their voice flat. "It's been a while." Jordan's mind buzzed with the conversation they'd been planning, the memories they had shared, the questions they needed to ask. They tried to push past the creeping discomfort and focus on the reunion. "How have you been?" Jordan asked, trying to keep the conversation light. Alex shrugged. "I've been okay. You know, the usual stuff. Work's been hectic. Just trying to stay busy, I guess." Jordan nodded, but their mind wasn't focused on the mundane details of Alex's life. They needed to talk about the things that had been eating away at them, the strange behaviors, the gaps in Alex's memory. They needed to know what was going on. "Remember that trip we took to the mountains, the one with the cabin? That weekend we stayed up late talking about everything?" Jordan asked, leaning forward. They were trying to bring back the good memories, the ones that connected them so deeply, hoping Alex would join in and reminisce. But Alex blinked. For a moment, they just stared at Jordan, their face blank, as if the words hadn't registered. "What? What trip?" Jordan's heart skipped a beat. "The trip to the cabin, Alex. We went there after graduation. You, me, and a few others. We stayed up by the fireplace and talked about our future. You don't remember?" Alex's gaze flickered for a moment. Then they shook their head. "I'm not sure what you're talking about. I mean, maybe I've just forgotten the details." There's been a lot going on lately. The words hit Jordan like a physical blow. The trip was one of their fondest memories, a weekend that had cemented the closeness they'd shared. How could Alex not remember it? A lump formed in Jordan's throat. But they forced themselves to remain calm. Alex, that weekend meant a lot to me. It was one of the best times we had together. How could you forget that? Alex's smile faltered, and they looked away, as if searching for the right words. Look, Jordan, I don't know. I'm not trying to make you upset. I just don't remember. Maybe I'm just getting old, you know? Memory is a funny thing. Jordan's mind raced, but they couldn't make sense of what was happening. The look in Alex's eyes wasn't one of forgetfulness. It was more like confusion, as if they truly had no recollection of what Jordan was talking about. For a moment, the conversation hung in the air, heavy with unspoken questions. Jordan's thoughts spiraled. Was this a sign that something was seriously wrong? Could Alex have truly forgotten such a significant event? The silence stretched, the tension thick enough to cut through. Jordan's breath caught in their throat, the fear that had been growing in the pit of their stomach now a palpable presence. This wasn't a simple lapse in memory. It was something more, something deeper, and it was terrifying. Jordan tried to steady their thoughts. Alex, I don't understand. You don't remember at all? Alex gave a quick, dismissive chuckle, but it didn't sound right. It was too forced, too shallow. I guess I'm just not the same person I used to be. People change, right? Jordan could feel their pulse quickening, the ground beneath them suddenly feeling unsteady. They wanted to shout, to demand answers, but instead, they clung to their composure, trying to rationalize what had just happened. Maybe Alex was going through something, some kind of stress that had caused this lapse in memory. Maybe they had been more distant for a reason. But deep down, Jordan knew the truth. Something was terribly wrong. They felt a wave of dizziness wash over them, the world spinning as Alex's face blurred in their vision. Was it possible that Alex was pulling away from them deliberately? Or was this something worse? Something beyond their control? Trying to steady their breathing, Jordan reached for their coffee, but their hands were trembling. It's just hard to accept. That's all. I thought we'd have those memories forever. You and me, we always promised we'd stick together, no matter what. Alex's expression softened for a brief moment, but there was a coldness behind their eyes that Jordan couldn't ignore. I don't know what you want from me, Jordan. I'm here. I'm trying, okay? The words echoed in Jordan's mind, but they didn't offer the comfort they once would have. The walls between them had grown, a quiet chasm widening with every passing moment. They no longer felt like two people who shared the same past, the same history. They felt like strangers, caught in a moment they couldn't escape. Jordan sat back, a sick feeling pooling in their stomach. The gnawing thought that haunted them since the first strange encounter with Alex was now undeniable. Alex was slipping away, and with each moment, so too was their grip on the memories they had shared, the identity they once had. It was no longer just a feeling. It was a terrifying reality. Something was happening, something beyond Jordan's understanding, and they were powerless to stop it. The headache started off small, just a dull throb at the base of Jordan's skull. But soon, they became more frequent, each one more intense than the last. It wasn't just the physical pain that unsettled them. It was the creeping fog in their mind that followed. Small lapses in memory began to slip in. A forgotten name, a misappointment, a momentary blank spot where something important should have been. One morning, Jordan stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to remember the last time they brushed their teeth. The feeling was surreal. The reflection staring back at them seemed unfamiliar, like someone they should know but didn't. Was it the exhaustion from too many sleepless nights? Or was it something worse? Something that threatened to unravel their very sense of self? They walked out into the living room, trying to shake off the dizziness. But everything around them felt wrong. The apartment, the furniture, nothing looked quite the way they remembered. Was it always this messy? Did they really leave the cup on the counter last night? The uncertainty was gnawing at them. The walls felt like they were closing in, and for the first time, Jordan questioned if they were truly losing their grip on reality. Was it just stress, or something far darker? Something they couldn't control? The cafe had become a regular meeting place, a neutral zone where Jordan tried to piece together the fragments of their unsettling encounters with Alex. But today, the scene felt different. There was an unfamiliar tension in the air as Jordan walked in, scanning the room for Alex. They spotted them quickly, sitting at a corner table, but not alone. A stranger was with them. The newcomer was a man, tall, with dark hair and sharp features. He was laughing at something Alex had said, and it was an easy, comfortable laugh. The kind of laughter that made Jordan's heart twist in a way they couldn't quite explain. Alex seemed so at ease, so familiar with this person. It unsettled them, making the space between them feel even more distant than before. As Jordan approached the table, Alex looked up, a bright smile spreading across their face. But the moment their eyes met Jordan's, there was a brief flicker of something hard to place. A hesitation? Then Alex waved him over. "Hey, Jordan, I want you to meet someone." Alex gestured toward the man across from them, the stranger's face unreadable, but curious. "This is Lucas," Alex continued. "We met recently. He's been helping me out with some stuff, and I thought you two should meet." Jordan stood frozen for a moment, trying to piece together the situation. Lucas? They didn't recognize him. And more disturbingly, why hadn't Alex told him about him before? "Hey, nice to meet you," Jordan said, forcing a smile, but their voice faltered slightly. They could feel their pulse quicken as they sat down across from Lucas, their eyes darting between him and Alex. The air felt thick with unspoken words, and Jordan couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was wrong. They'd never heard Alex talk about anyone named Lucas before, certainly not someone who seemed so involved in their life now. Lucas extended a hand, his grip firm but somewhat cold. "Nice to meet you, too. Alex has said a lot about you," he said casually. Jordan stiffened. Alex had never mentioned Lucas before. Had they? Really? Jordan replied, try and play it cool, but every instinct told him something was off. Alex chimed in too eagerly. "Yeah, we talk about all the fun memories we have together. Remember the old times, Jordan? It's been too long since we all hung out." Jordan felt a lump form in their throat. Memories? The more Alex spoke, the more it felt like an intrusion on something private, as if Alex and Lucas shared a history that Jordan wasn't a part of. What was happening? They stared at Alex, trying to place the expression in their eyes. Alex was too calm, too distracted. The conversation stalled in an uncomfortable silence, and Jordan felt like an outsider in their own memories, like the pieces of their past with Alex were slipping away. They struggled to push the thoughts down, but it was impossible to ignore the gnawing fear creeping in. The feeling of displacement lingered, leaving a hollow ache in Jordan's chest. Jordan had never expected the conversation to go in this direction. They were sitting across from Alex and Lucas, the cafe buzzing softly in the background. When the first crack appeared in the fragile illusion of normalcy, they had been talking about nothing in particular. Casual banter, an attempt to reclaim some semblance of the connection Jordan had once shared with Alex. But as Alex laughed, their eyes dull and unfocused, a strange, unsettling comment slipped out. Jordan had just made a joke about their old college days. Something about how Alex used to steal the last slice of pizza during their late-night study sessions. It was lighthearted, a nostalgia trip, something they'd laughed about 100 times before. But Alex's reaction wasn't what Jordan had expected. "Oh, right," Alex said, looking up from their phone with a bored expression. You always were so clingy, weren't you? It's pathetic how you never could take a hint. The words hit Jordan like a slap. They blinked, tried to process the sharp sting of Alex's tone. Clingy? Pathetic? Alex had always teased him about their quirks. But this was different. There was a venomous edge to it, a coldness that made the casual comment feel like betrayal. Jordan's stomach dropped, and their mouth went dry. The table seemed to shrink, the distance between them and Alex growing wider with every second. They had heard those words before, but only in their darkest self-doubts. Hearing them now, from someone who had been their closest friend, felt like a gut punch. What did you just say? Jordan managed to choke out, their voice trembling. Alex looked at them, brows furrowed in confusion, as if the words had never even registered. What? Did I say something wrong? I was just messing with you. You know I do that. Jordan tried to laugh it off, but the sound fell hollow. Messing with me? No, this was different. There was something in Alex's eyes that wasn't just playful teasing. It was distant. It was like a stranger wearing Alex's face, saying things they would never say. Lucas, who had been silent up until now, looked between the two of them, then at Alex. Hey, maybe lay off a bit. Jordan didn't look too happy about that. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, a faint discomfort, like even he sensed the tension growing. But Alex didn't seem to care. They simply shrugged, picking at their coffee cup. Relax, I was just being honest. You've always been so serious about everything. It's exhausting sometimes. Jordan's heart raced, panic crawling beneath their skin. What was happening? Was this some kind of sick joke? The Alex they knew would never say something so cruel. They had always understood each other, had shared inside jokes about their quirks and insecurities. But now, everything felt distorted, like they were no longer speaking the same language. The warmth that used to exist between them had evaporated, replaced by something cold, something unrecognizable. Jordan fought to keep their composure, but the words lingered, each one a nail in the coffin of the friendship they once believed would last forever. Alex wasn't acting like themselves anymore. Jordan couldn't help but wonder if this was the real Alex, or if this was someone or something pretending to be them. The evening dragged on after the conversation, the air in the cafe growing heavy with an unspoken tension. Jordan sat in silence, unable to shake the sting of Alex's words. Clingy? Pathetic? They repeated the phrases over and over in their mind, each repetition deepening the knot in their stomach. As they made their way back home, the weight of the encounter settled more heavily on them. Was I too sensitive? The thought began to worm its way into their mind. Maybe I just overreacted. Maybe I'm projecting my own insecurities onto Alex. Jordan had always been prone to self-doubt, constantly questioning their worth, their place in the world, and their relationships. The breakup with their partner had left them feeling exposed, raw. It was entirely possible that they had let their emotions cloud their judgment, that they were misinterpreting things. After all, Alex had always been the one person who knew them inside and out. They'd shared so many moments, so many vulnerabilities. Could someone who had been their friend for so long really turn into a stranger overnight? The nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Jordan lay in bed, tossing and turning, replaying the events of the afternoon. They thought back to the years of laughter and inside jokes with Alex, the countless late nights they spent talking about their hopes and fears. That connection had been so real, so deep. How could that have changed so quickly? The guilt gnawed at them, eating away at their confidence. Maybe I'm just imagining things. Maybe Alex was tired or stressed, or just wasn't in the mood for jokes today. They didn't mean to hurt me. But even as they tried to convince themselves, something deep inside wouldn't let them fully believe it. They had felt the coldness in Alex's words, seen the flicker of indifference in their eyes. Was it possible that the person sitting across from them wasn't Alex at all? Jordan closed their eyes, pulling the covers tight around them, trying to push the thoughts away. But even as they lay there, their mind churned with doubt, with questions they couldn't answer. Were they just letting their insecurities twist the reality of their friendship, or was something far darker happening? Sleep came fitfully, but even in their dreams, the feeling of disconnection lingered. The guilt of doubting their friend weighed on them, but the unease, the fear, refused to be silenced. The air outside was crisp, a sharp contrast to the tight, suffocating feeling that had settled in Jordan's chest. It had been a few days since their last meeting with Alex, and the discomfort had only deepened. They couldn't shake the image of Alex's cold, cutting words. Every time they tried to brush it off, the feeling of betrayal flared up again. The doubt twisted inside them, gnawing at their sanity. That evening, Jordan stood outside Alex's apartment building, the cool evening breeze tugging at the collar of their jacket. Their hand lingered on the doorbell for a moment, the sound of their heartbeat loud in their ears. What were they even going to say? How could they confront Alex about something as delicate as this? What if they were wrong? What if they were the one who had misinterpreted everything? But the need for answers was overwhelming. They had to see Alex, hear from him directly, and hopefully find some semblance of normalcy to hold on to. Jordan pressed the doorbell, and after a few moments, the door creaked open, revealing Alex standing in the entryway. The greeting Jordan had expected, a smile, an eager invitation inside, was absent. Instead, Alex's face was vacant, distant. Their eyes were unfocused, glazed, as if they weren't fully present in the world around them. "Hey!" Jordan said cautiously, their voice faltering as they took a hesitant step forward. "Can we talk?" Alex didn't respond immediately. They just stood there, staring blankly, as if processing something far away in their mind. The usual spark of recognition or warmth that always greeted Jordan in the past was missing, replaced by an uncomfortable, almost eerie stillness. Jordan shifted uncomfortably. "Alex," they asked again, more firmly this time. Finally, Alex blinked, as though coming out of a trance. "Oh, yeah, sorry. Come in." Their voice was soft, almost robotic, as they stepped aside to allow Jordan in. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating, but Jordan pushed it down, focusing on the need to talk. They stepped into the apartment, but the usual warmth that had once characterized the space, memories of shared laughter, the comfort of familiar surroundings, was gone. The place felt cold, sterile, like a home devoid of the soul that used to fill it. Alex led them to the living room, but instead of sitting down with the usual enthusiasm, they simply flopped onto the couch, staring at the television without really watching. The silence between them stretched out, uncomfortable and heavy. Jordan sat down beside Alex, trying to steady their breath. "Alex," they began, the words feeling more fragile than they'd intended. "I need to understand what's going on. You've been distant lately, and, well, I don't know what to think. You've said things that just don't feel like you. What's happening?" Alex didn't answer right away. Their gaze remained fixed on the screen, though their minds seemed elsewhere. A long, uncomfortable silence filled the room, the tension suffocating. It felt as though Alex wasn't even aware that Jordan was sitting next to them, or perhaps that Jordan was even in the room at all. Jordan reached out, touching Alex's arm gently. "Alex." Finally, Alex turned their head slowly, as if it took an enormous effort to focus on Jordan. There was no recognition in their eyes, no warmth, just a hollow, vacant stare. "What's wrong?" Alex asked, their voice far too calm, far too detached. The question sent a chill down Jordan's spine. "What's wrong? You're the one who's different." Jordan's throat tightened, the knot of fear and confusion growing. They opened their mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The truth was too painful to voice, too terrifying. Alex blinked again, looking almost confused. Do you want to hang out? Or is this something important? The utter disconnect in Alex's tone struck Jordan like a physical blow. Something was wrong, something deep and incomprehensible. The person sitting next to them didn't feel like Alex anymore. This wasn't the friend they had known, the friend they had trusted. There was only silence now, like a cry that went unheard, a scream trapped within their mind. Jordan felt the weight of those unspoken words, the emptiness that lay between them, the fragile thread connecting them to the past, to their memories, to the person Alex once was, had frayed and snapped. And now, as they sat in that silent room, they realized with gut-wrenching clarity, Alex was no longer there. The phone rang, slicing through the quiet of Jordan's apartment like a shard of ice. They stared at the screen, the name Alex flashing back at them, and for a moment, Jordan hesitated. The unease that had been simmering since their last meeting crept up again, its familiar weight pressing on their chest. Should I even answer? They thought. But before they could think any more about it, their thumb had already swiped the screen. Hello. Jordan's voice was shaky, a little uncertain, but they tried to steady it. Hey, came Alex's voice on the other end, but it was wrong. The tone was flat, detached, as though it was coming from a great distance, through a fog. The warmth that used to fill Alex's voice was missing, replaced by something colder, more mechanical. Jordan furrowed their brow, trying to shake off the unease settling into their stomach. Alex, is everything okay? There was a pause on the other end, too long, before Alex finally spoke again. Yeah, I'm fine. Just, busy, Alex said, but the words didn't have a usual cadence, the familiar rhythm of their past conversations. It was almost like the words were being fed to them from someone else, or perhaps from somewhere else entirely. Jordan swallowed. Busy? What do you mean? You haven't been around much lately. I've been worried. Actually, you've been distant. Another pause. The silence stretched on for a second too long. And when Alex responded, their voice sounded more mechanical than ever, more like a recording. Yeah, sorry about that. Just a lot on my mind, I guess. Their words were so clipped, so impersonal, that it made Jordan feel like they were talking to a stranger, not someone they'd once known so intimately. Alex, this isn't like you, Jordan said, the words tumbling out before they could stop them. The frustration, the confusion, the fear, it was all there, seeping through. I need to know what's going on. You're acting weird. Are you okay? Another long silence. Then Alex's voice cut through again, but this time it was even more distant, as if they weren't truly speaking to Jordan at all. I'm fine, really. Just tired. I'll talk to you later. Before Jordan could reply, the line went dead. The abruptness of it took their breath away. The phone screen went dark, leaving Jordan staring at it, holding the lifeless device in their hand. What had just happened? Jordan's mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. The way Alex spoke, distant, almost robotic. No warmth, no familiarity, no connection. It was as if the person on the other end of the phone wasn't even the same person they had shared memories with, the person they had confided in, laughed with, cried with. A cold chill ran down Jordan's spine as they sat there in the quiet, the silence of the room pressing in on them, the connection between them, once strong and filled with mutual understanding, had been severed. In its place was a void, an emptiness where Alex used to be. Jordan wanted to believe that it was just a bad call, a bad connection, that something had caused Alex to sound off. But deep down, they couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something darker, something far more sinister, was at play. This wasn't just a phone call. It felt like a warning that the person they had known, their best friend, their confidant, was slipping away, and that Jordan, too, might be losing them forever. The nights had become restless. Jordan couldn't remember the last time they'd slept through the night without being disturbed by dreams. But these weren't just any ordinary dreams. They were vivid, unsettling, and filled with a presence that shouldn't have been there. Each time Jordan closed her eyes, the dreams came with disturbing familiarity, a false sense of security at first, only to twist into something horrifying. In the first dream, they were sitting in a familiar place, a park bench where Jordan and Alex had spent countless afternoons. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the world, and everything felt just right, until Alex spoke. "Jordan, I've been meaning to tell you something." Jordan turned to face them, ready to share in the comfortable, familiar conversation they'd always had. But when Alex's eyes met theirs, it was as if the person sitting next to them was a stranger. The warmth, the connection, gone. Instead, there was only coldness, an emptiness that seeped into Jordan's very soul. "I'm not who you think I am," Alex said, their voice distant, devoid of emotion. "I've never been who you think I am." The word sent a chill through Jordan's body, leaving them frozen in place. Before they could respond, Alex's features began to shift, their face blurred, morphing and distorting, twisting into a mask of unfamiliarity. The features no longer made sense. What was once Alex, sharp, familiar, safe, was now a distorted, faceless shadow. A stranger who wore Alex's skin, whose smile held no warmth, only a strange, unsettling emptiness. The dream shifted again, and Jordan was standing alone in a dark room. The walls seemed to close in on them, the air thick with tension. They could hear Alex's voice echoing in the distance, but it sounded hollow, muffled, like it was coming from behind a door they couldn't open. The sound was distant, as if the very essence of their friendship had been placed just out of reach. "Jordan, I'm not your friend. You don't know me," Alex's voice whispered, barely audible. Jordan reached out, desperation clawing at their chest. "No, please don't." But the words were swallowed by the dark, their plea lost in the silence. The world around them crumbled, and when they opened their eyes again, Alex was gone. The dream ended, but the terror lingered, clinging to Jordan's mind even after they awoke. Their heart raced as they lay in the dim light of their bedroom, sweat cold on their skin. It wasn't just a nightmare. It felt real, too real. In the dream, Alex hadn't just been distant. They had been different. A stranger who was never truly there. Never the person Jordan had known. The realization hit with devastating clarity. What if that was the truth? What if the person they had been clinging to, the person they thought was Alex, was never really Alex at all? Jordan sat up in bed, their breathing erratic. They tried to shake off the dream, but it clung to them, gnawing at their mind. What if the Alex they had known was slipping away, eroding with every passing day? What if the person they had met recently wasn't Alex at all, but something else? Something pretending to be them? The thought consumed them, turning the pit in their stomach into something cold and suffocating. The idea that their memories of Alex were built on a foundation that could crumble at any moment was terrifying. Jordan wanted to scream, to reach out for help, but there was no one who would understand, no one who could grasp the growing terror that gnawed at their sense of reality. Every moment they spent with Alex seemed to deepen the wound, pushing them closer to the brink of madness. The dreams, the whispers in the darkness, the changes in Alex, all pointed to the same painful truth. Jordan was losing them, and in losing Alex, they were losing themselves too. The encounter took place in a small, dimly lit bar where Jordan and Alex had met for drinks. The once comfortable, easy atmosphere between them had long since evaporated, replaced by an undercurrent of tension that neither could ignore. Jordan tried to keep the conversation light, but something kept pulling at them, the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As they sipped their drinks, Jordan casually brought up a memory from a few years ago, a concert they had attended together, a band they both adored. It was one of those nights that should have been filled with nostalgia and warmth. But as Jordan began to speak, they were met with an immediate and unsettling response. "I don't remember that," Alex said, shaking their head slowly, an eyebrow raised in confusion. "Are you sure we went to that concert together?" Jordan blinked, stunned. "What do you mean? You were there. We were right up front near the stage. We had a great time." Alex's expression didn't shift, and her tone was flat, almost dismissive. "I don't remember that at all," they repeated. "I've never been to a concert like that." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating Jordan's sense of reality. They felt a cold rush in their chests, a creeping unease that they couldn't shake. The memory was so clear, so vivid in Jordan's mind. They could almost hear the music, see the lights flashing, feel the heat of the crowd pressing in around them. It happened, Jordan thought. It had to have happened. But Alex's denial was firm, their eyes not just uncertain, but almost offensive, as if questioning the very fabric of Jordan's recollection. "Maybe you're thinking of someone else," Alex suggested, their voice oddly casual. Jordan felt the knot tighten in their stomach. No, this isn't happening. This isn't like Alex. The Alex they knew wouldn't have forgotten something so significant. They had shared moments like that together, treasured them, and yet here was Alex, standing in front of them, insisting that it had never happened. "Are you serious?" Jordan asked, the question slipping out before they could stop it. "You don't remember that? You don't remember me?" Alex's gaze hardened, the familiar warmth absent from her face. "Maybe you're the one who's confused," they said, voice tinged with an edge of annoyance. "I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this." The words stung more than they should have. Jordan's heart pounded in their chest. Why would Alex say something like that? Why would they deny what we've shared? In that moment, it wasn't just a denial of a memory. It was a beginning of something darker. It felt like a deliberate manipulation, like Alex was trying to convince them that their own mind was betraying them. It felt like gaslighting. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and now they were starting to grow, winding their tendrils around Jordan's thoughts. Jordan's pulse quickened as they searched for a way to defend their own sanity. But the words faltered on their lips. What if they were wrong? What if they had misremembered? The thought made them dizzy, disoriented. "No," Jordan whispered to themselves more than Alex. "No, I'm not wrong. I can't be." But Alex seemed unaffected by their distress. They casually reached for their drink, almost as though nothing had happened, as if the conversation had been no more than a minor inconvenience. Jordan was shaken, but they tried to mask it, forcing a tight smile. "You're right. I must be mistaken," they said, though the words fell hollow. Inside, however, the terror was beginning to sink its claws into their mind. If Alex didn't remember what Jordan knew to be true, then maybe it wasn't just Alex who was changing. Maybe Jordan had lost their grip on reality. Maybe their memories were nothing more than illusions, and they were the one who was slowly unraveling. But the more Jordan thought about it, the more they realized something even more terrifying. What if this wasn't just a simple memory lapse? What if Alex was trying to manipulate them, make them doubt themselves, and distort their own version of events? The realization made their skin crawl. The gaslighting had begun. The night had arrived, and with it, the mounting weight of everything Jordan had been pushing aside for weeks. It felt as though the very ground beneath them was beginning to shake. The air was thick with tension, a heavy silence hanging between them, the unsaid words pressing like a suffocating cloud. The time had come to confront Alex, to face whatever this was, whatever had been twisting their reality into something unrecognizable. Jordan had invited Alex to meet at the same cafe where they had first reconnected, trying to hold on to something familiar, something that hadn't yet been tainted by the strange, suffocating feeling. But as they sat across from each other, something was off. Alex's eyes were cold, distant, and the smile that once made Jordan feel safe now seemed forced, artificial. "I need to talk to you," Jordan said, their voice trembling despite their efforts to remain calm. "This isn't you, Alex. Something's wrong. You've been different, denying everything, denying me." Alex's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of irritation crossing their face. "What are you talking about?" they asked, almost bored, as if Jordan's distress were a nuisance rather than a genuine concern. "You know exactly what I mean. The concert, the memories we've shared. You said you didn't remember, but you were there. You're acting like I'm crazy." Jordan's voice cracked as they spoke, the words tumbling out before they could stop them. Alex leaned back in their chair, their arms crossing over their chest, and the look on their face twisted into something unsettling, something unfamiliar. "You're the one acting crazy, Jordan," Alex said coldly, the words like ice on a warm summer night. "You've been fixating on things that don't even matter. I don't know why you keep dredging up memories like that. We've moved on. I've moved on. You're the one who can't let go." Jordan felt the room spin. The air grew thick, as if everything was slowly closing in around them. "I haven't moved on because you haven't changed. You're not acting like you." They paused, unsure of how to continue. Every sentence felt like it was slowly unraveling. The face in front of them wasn't the face of their childhood friend. It wasn't Alex. Not anymore. The shift in Alex's demeanor was unmistakable. This person, this version of Alex, felt like a stranger, a version that existed only to confuse, to hurt. "You're not the Alex I knew," Jordan whispered, their voice breaking. "I don't know who you are anymore, but this isn't you. Why are you doing this to me?" Alex's lips curled into a strange smile, too wide, too sharp. It was a look Jordan had never seen before, and it felt wrong in every way. "What if I told you that you're the one who's different? What if I told you that I've always been like this? You were just too blinded by your own memories to see it." Jordan's chest tightened, the words hitting harder than any physical blow could. What are you talking about?" Their voice wavered, their eyes stinging with tears they couldn't stop from coming. "Alex, please. Please, I don't know who this is, but I need the real you. I need my friend back." For the first time, Alex's expression faltered, but it was fleeting. It lasted only a moment before they leaned in closer, their voice low, almost mocking. "I am the real me, Jordan. You're just too far gone. Maybe you were never that close to me. Maybe you just thought we had this bond, but it was all in your head. You've always been crazy, Jordan. You've always needed me more than I ever needed you." The words stung like a slap to the face, and for a moment, Jordan couldn't breathe. Their heart pounded painfully in their chest, a panic rising like a tidal wave. Was this really happening? Could it really be that they were losing everything, including themselves? "You're lying," Jordan whispered, the words barely audible through the haze of fear and disbelief. "You can't be Alex." Alex's eyes flickered with something that might have been satisfaction, or perhaps it was something darker. "Who else would I be, Jordan? Who else could I be? You think this is some game? This is your mind breaking down. You've always been unstable. Now you're just proving it to yourself." The words were sharp and cruel, the final straw that broke Jordan's ability to hold on to anything, even themselves. Everything they had known, every truth they had believed, was crumbling in front of them. Alex wasn't Alex. And maybe, just maybe, Jordan wasn't even Jordan anymore. The thought was more terrifying than anything they had ever imagined. Because if Alex wasn't Alex, if their best friend had vanished into the air, then who were they? Were they even the person they thought they were? Were they truly losing their mind? Was everything just a story they'd made up in their head? Tears streamed down Jordan's face, their hands trembling as they gripped the edge of the table. Their identity, their sense of self, everything was slipping away, falling into a void where no one, not even they, could follow. And as Alex stood up indifferent, unbothered by the devastation they had caused, Jordan realized something far more chilling. They were alone, and maybe they always had been.